Hello once again, dear viewers. You're watching ERi-TV. Welcome to this week's special edition of Open Mic. My guest for this week is going to be Samuel Tesfay. He is a financial advisor, lecturer in economics and finance. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you for giving me the chance to be here with you.
Okay.
A real pleasure.
All right, Samuel, you were here at the ministry a couple of days ago, and you've given us a seminar on, well, just as the climate is changing in our world today, we will also be watching a change in the way the world is going to be doing business. And in a set period of time, that the world is actually challenging the dollar. De-dollarization.
As well, yeah.
Okay, so let us start with which countries are the nations of the BRICS, and you know, what's happening?
What's happening is it's a very interesting time, similar to what was going on in 1990, right before the independence of Eritrea. A lot of things, blocks was moving, a lot of hopes. And Eritrea became independent in 1991, and we saw, you know, the Berlin Wall falling, Russia or USSR, you know, being dismantled. At least now it's now. So we see the last 15-20 years started to about 20 years ago with the formation of BRIC nations, Brazil, India, Russia, and China. They started as a group first. And then they added, then South Africa was added 10 years later. And now we see a big dynamics, actually, a lot of other countries being interested, many African countries, especially in the Arab Peninsula, like Saudi Arabia as the lead, and then the other smaller nations are also following. And I see it as a very important time in our life, especially when you look at it from the African perspective. It's going to be a big help, a big opener for African nations, especially.
So the BRIC nations, okay, they are the ones that are actually, should I use the term challenging the dollar? Would challenging be the right term for it? And why are they doing it?
I wouldn't say challenging the dollar, but let's say what's their mission. The BRICS,
what is their objective?
Yeah? Objective is to form a bloc of nations as one, you know, like you have the European Union, which is political and economical union, and the BRICS is going that way as well. So initially it's economical formation. They are doing intra-BRICS nations trade, which is changing and challenging the status quo of West, South, West. Before, you know, we have raw material in Africa. It goes as gas or as petroleum, and then it's coming as gas or transformed. You know, we have diamond, we have gold, and so we give them dirt, and then we're getting the refined goods from Europe and probably Western countries. So now the idea is to, well, what BRICS are doing is to intra-BRICS nations trade. And what's unbelievable is it's becoming as big as the G7 groups as well. So it's massive in terms of population. It's about a third of Earth population. I will have a look actually. Yeah, it's actually they represented about 42% of the world population, which is close to half of so it's big, it's massive.
It's big.
And then 23% of global GDP, which is also quite big, and 17% of worldwide trade at the moment. But then, so the next phase of BRICS is to add new members. Saudi Arabia was, as I was saying earlier, have already indicated they want to join. Egypt, Algeria, massive. Algeria is one of big oil producer in Africa, and gas as well. It's not really well known. I mean, we don't see it as a gas exporter and oil and so on, but at least once they join, then this GDP will probably be 20-30%, and the population will be half of the world will be under BRICS, and hopefully in the near future, hopefully I hope to see Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Sudan maybe form a economic bloc and join at some stage as well. That's so the challenging is the status quo. So the challenge is the way it was before. So as we were saying, so south to north or south to Western countries. Now it's Brazil with India, India with China, India with Eritrea, with Tanzania. So it's completely changing the status quo, the way trade was done before. They are planning to create a currency, BRICS currency, which will ease again then the transfer of goods and the economy. I mean the financial side of it will change as well. So, but that's still in thought. I mean it's not in progress anyway. It's not. It hasn't started yet. But at least, but also the fact that the war, Ukraine-Russia war, that has accelerated the need to form an independent financial service in the world outside the Western system, the SWIFT system that they have now. So Russia have done it, and China has its own one, and now they are working together to actually make it working for everyone. And hopefully in the next, I would say not exactly how many years, but we'll see a big change.
Okay, Samuel, my question is like now they're even discussing the use of digital currency, using their own currencies instead of using the dollar when they're making their transactions and what have you. So still, you haven't answered why. I mean, and why there is need to de-dollarize.
Well, this has been a big topic the last 6 months, and even the year, almost since last year. The fact is, if the US dollar was neutral, wouldn't have been a problem. So the problem now is if it's politicized, So US is using it as a political tool. Either you do this, or I sanction you. So if you have sanctions and you have money in American banks, then it's gone. They will confiscate it and hold it until you do whatever they ask you to do. So they have done it with Russia. They have done it with Eritrea. They have done it with Iranian assets in the US. So that's the issue. And everyone is scared. Even the European Union itself is scared that sometimes one day they do something else, and then the US will hit them with sanctions. And they have done with every single African country. It's also not necessary to trade with dollars. Imagine a Sudanese businessman comes here, buy goods, and then they have to pay in dollars, US dollars, So it doesn't really make sense. So that's there's a new movement now doing like using your own currency especially countries bordering each other, like not even, you have India and Tanzania, which is far from each other, Argentina with China, Argentina with Japan, Singapore with Indonesia. All these countries are using their local currencies. And up to now, no one thought of, okay, why am I using US dollars? It was just subconscious. They were just doing it without really thinking about, maybe not thinking about it, but it was set from the beginning, and no one thought to challenge it. But now every country is doing that. It's still very marginal amount of money traded internationally. It's very small, but at least the board have started to think, why should I use dollars to buy? Even here, the case of Ethiopian Airlines, Eritreans wanting to go to Ethiopia, they have to buy their ticket using US dollars. And US dollars, where do you get it? No one pays you in US dollars in Eritrea. We are paid in NAFA. So why not get into the policies saying, if you deal in Eritrea, then use Eritrean currencies, and hopefully it will come quite soon enough. But that's what's happening. And it's also the other question about the digital currency. Digital currency started about 10, 12 years ago with Bitcoin. It wasn't really popular, but it has gained popularity the last 5 years. And now countries are also, or central banks are floating the thought of creating their own digital currency. China is one of them. And once it's done, then digital currency it's not physical. It can't be transferred instantly. And especially if it's widely accepted, that's probably the next thing, the next phase of economy or finance that we will see is a digital currency.
Okay. So Samuel, you're telling me that the issue of sovereignty will have been resolved. I mean, nobody wants to be subject to another country, especially in its domestic affairs. So this is actually a big plus, and so many nations are actually interested in what the BRIC nations are doing. So is it working for them at the moment? And where have they gone? Have they established their own banks that they could do their...
Well, they have had their own banks from the beginning. What's happening is it's like there was one way before, everyone was using the US dollars to trade. So if China wanted to buys oil from Saudi Arabia, they used US dollars. Now they are changing it. And it has created a lot of wars because of that. Every single country that wanted to challenge that, they were hit by war, and like Iraq, so Iraq is it's not the way it was before, and so it has created a lot of wars because of that. Well, it's not that it's not working for them. It's working, definitely working, but it's still minor, very compared to when you see the size of trades done in US dollars. It's in the trillions of dollars, and then when you look at it in the local currencies, it's done in it's in maybe around 5% worldwide at the moment. But again, it started, so everything starts small, and then they gain momentum, and it like how the Eritrean independence started. We started with 7 to 8 people, and then we ended up winning against a country that's 10 times or even 100 times the population. So that's but it's good that it started, and we'll see it. And they are successful as well. They are successful. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't have continued. They started BRICS almost 20 years ago, and they are getting into adding more members. So the organization is growing in terms of members, but also in terms of influence around the world. Before, when they started, they were not taken really serious. Not that they were not taken serious, but the Western countries were saying, they are too small. They would not probably advance as they are now, but at least it's getting momentum. China, Russia, Brazil, India, those countries are really pushing. And South Africa, actually, South Africa as well. South Africa is influencing African countries to actually be a member as well. And they are very successful at it, like Nigeria is looking at it. Tanzania, big country. Ethiopia, probably I haven't heard, but at least it should be the next big country to join as well. So it is getting momentum, and it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. It's like when you start an organization that's useful. I mean, it's not, if it's not useful, then obviously it is costly. But in this case, it's an organization that's helping a lot in terms of health, in terms of finance, in terms of agriculture. So it's not just money-wise. So they have agreements in all these different sectors, even in defense and intelligence. So it's going to be something good and something big as well, and good, beneficial for people of the third world country or developing nations at the moment.
Which begs another question. I mean, yes, it might be beneficial. And do you believe that the United States is going to keep quiet or silent with the way things are going? I mean, we've seen the challenges Russia is facing at the moment, what the world is looking at China as. So what is your take on that one?
That's a big question, but well, definitely no. They are not. No one wants to give its seats for free, or the position they are in. They are the most powerful country in the world at the moment. So they are being challenged financially. Militarily, definitely not at the moment, but at least I would say that they will do whatever it takes. European Union started as a small organization. Now it's the member of. They have about 27 countries, and it's massive. However, they don't have the political strength to challenge the US. So they are, as they say themselves, they are vassal of the US. But BRICS wouldn't be a vassal of the US, or will definitely do whatever is best for the BRICS nations. So I'm not sure they would have to make agreement with BRICS nations rather than collide and try to dictate to at their will. So they wouldn't have any choice. They would have to come to an agreement, and they would, sooner or later they will do that. They will have to come to terms and agree with them. But they are still doing that. They are doing business with all these countries. But now the difference is intra-BRICS nations trade is increasing, and it's massive. It is something that they will have to agree with.
Okay. All right, Samuel, one last question now. You've mentioned a couple of African nations, and I just want to know what impacts Africa will have, what this new movement in, currency will have to the impact in Africa.
Firstly, financially, it will be very beneficial for African nations. If they decided to become member of BRICS or even join there is a bank that BRICS started as well, the new development bank, compared to World Bank. The World Bank, they have to borrow money in US dollars, create US dollars, and then to repay it in US dollars. That's what we call the debt trap. So you need to borrow money in dollars, and then you have to export something cheap to get US dollars, and then to pay your whatever you borrowed from World Bank. But in this case, with the DNB, it might be a different currency, but also because it will be trading between BRICS nations, that will help them, definitely help, especially African nations. We have a lot of wealth in our continent, the wealthiest continent on earth, actually. That will be a massive breakthrough for Africa. Okay.
Any final messages before we close?
Final messages? Well, I hope, not that I hope, looking forward for this bloc, this area of Horn of Africa nations to live in peace, but also prosperous, and finally be a member of BRICS as a group, probably, or even individually. That's what I'm looking for, and yeah, definitely that, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Samuel, it is a pleasure to have you here with us. Dear viewers, that wraps up this week's Open Mic. It is good night from me.